Hello everyone. I realized that when I was streaming earlier, that it may not have been going through on YouTube Live with this streaming software I'm using. Um, so I'm just going to do another quick stream right now. Well, I say quick, I mean I'll stay on for another hour if there are questions. Otherwise, I'll just do probably like a 30-minute thing. Because I did want to kind of touch on the second homework, which is due Tuesday, not the usual Monday since I released that homework a little late. I did provide an extra due date. Um, But feel free to still turn it in on Monday, but technically it's due Tuesday. So like if you used a flex day or want to use a flex day or whatever, then it would be due Monday. Um, but I did want to go ahead and maybe cover some quick stuff on it. Um, and I do realize that maybe people won't tune in since technically this is after the traditional office hour time. Um, but hopefully didn't miss out too many people uh, on that. But I did get an email just now from someone, so and also on YouTube when I was checking, I didn't see the previous video, so I'll just go over stuff again because I don't believe that one was actually streaming. Let me type something real fast. All right, so let's get the homework 2 instructions. And here's homework 2 pi, which I don't really need. Let's go over here. So I also released the grades for everything from the first week, just in case you didn't get an email on that, or if you didn't check. I believe an email got sent out. I got one under my like test student account, so hopefully everyone did. Um, yeah, I left comments, which are kind of hard to view in Canvas. I think maybe I can actually see the comments here in my simulated student. Yeah, so I do grade anonymously. So I don't know like whose submission is what, and that includes on my test student. So if you go to grades and then you'll see like a little blue dot, which I believe, yeah, indicates that there's a submission. So here's like the score you actually got, and here's like what it was out of. And you can do things like simulate, like, oh, what if I got like an A on this assignment or something? Um, so if you click that little comment icon, you'll be able to see my comments here. I think probably across like the lab quiz and homework, everyone got at least like one comment. And even if you did something per like you got it correct, right? You got like 18 out of 18 for the homework. I would sometimes still leave a comment on just providing like another way you could do the homework. Like in particular, can vote. Uh, some people would use like an if else statement for that, which technically it wasn't needed because um, you could just do return like what was age greater than or equal to 18. But an if else is still correct, right? So I just wanted to kind of let people know, hey, there's another um, solution you could take to solve that problem. Because I didn't expect people to do like an if else because that's kind of the topic for week 3. Um, yeah, so look at the comment and if even if you got like all, a 10 out of 10 and 18 out of 18 or whatever, um, still hopefully some useful comments on there on just kind of like alternatives or like things you could do to like make it a little cleaner, concise. Um, yeah, so that was just kind of the intention. And if I didn't leave any comments on any of your stuff, that means it was like, spot on and it's kind of also like exactly like the solution I had. So like, you didn't use the if else, for instance, but got it right. So if you didn't get any comments, that's fine too. Um, and everyone did do good work. I mean, the grades on that were really nice. So very proud of everyone. And yeah, I don't leave like, just generic like good work feedback on your grades. So that's me telling y'all right now that I was super impressed by everyone's work. It is really great that even when like people couldn't solve kind of different functions, um, that a lot of people still like kind of submitted that work. And a lot of people did leave kind of like comments in and print statements. So it's just really great for me to be able to see kind of the thinking and the workflow of everyone. And so I could kind of provide suggestions for that too. So, if you're working, especially on this one too, I know like the dice game function for homework 2 is kind of hard. So if you are struggling with that and it's a due date and you don't want to use a late day or a flex day, um, I always say submit what you have, and then especially if you're close um, to getting it, I mean, you still definitely get points, and I can kind of help narrow in on like what you might have been doing wrong or what like you could do to kind of actually get it all the way. So never don't submit anything, I would say. But yeah, that being said, I'm just gonna go over this homework right now, or not go over it per se, but kind of like touch on it. So the idea for this homework was definitely to cover these three topics, which I think are listed somewhere in here, of lists, while, and for loops, which was kind of the core topics for the week um, that I thought I had in here. Maybe I don't, but you can. I get this question too. I think I got it for the first one, but in general, there's no single way to kind of solve a function. And that also is true for these homework ones, with the caveat of kind of these two. But in general, like for instance, for can vote from homework one, uh, a lot of people did use if else, even though we didn't like cover that yet, and that's totally fine. And I think even on Piazza, someone's like, hey, can I use so and so, even though we haven't like covered it yet? And yeah, that's fine, unless I guess it kind of specifically says it. Um, like in this case, I do want you to kind of solve this problem using a for, and then you'll actually solve the same problem kind of using a while. Uh, and the only kind of reason that I do want to like require it is just so you can kind of see the two different ways on like solving a for loop problem and a while loop problem on how you can do kind of the same thing, um, but how like one might lend itself to being better than the other. So just also to kind of get y'all thinking on the differences between the two. So it's for maybe the only time that I'll kind of force it, but yeah, that's just the intention for that. So it's just kind of getting you these two print even numbers for print even numbers while is kind of the case where basically we want every other item in a list, which is kind of realistic too. I mean, you're definitely probably going to write some functions in the future where you're kind of going to want like every even item or like every other item. And so doing this kind of activity lends itself to those kind of functions. So I think it's applicable, especially to stuff in the future, and it's nice to see the kind of two different ways. Uh, so then that's the intention for the first two. So then this number fun one is one that I kind of want you to experiment with loops in different ways. So it's gonna do three different tasks, which I try to number right here, and then I put part one, uh, which I don't know if it's included in the file. You don't technically need part one. Yeah. So you should be printing at like three different points. I mean, you can use as many print statements as you want, but the intention is like, you're gonna want to do print stuff here and then print stuff here for the second and then print stuff here for the third. And it's just trying different things with different kinds of loops is the intention for that one. I want everyone to try out, uh, yeah, the different kind of aspects and ranges of loops. So that's what that's for. Start and end list kind of gets at, oh yeah, this documentation. Let me see what I provided. Nice. Um, to modify a list, which we kind of did and we touched on too in the lab. The whole beginning was kind of on lists, but this is a different aspect of it where you're going to copy a list, which kind of this gets at, and then make modifications. And I just want to be sure everyone's clear on that because this is something that can bite you uh, with all kind of variables, including lists. And so I kind of wanted to have a problem on that to get at that, um, basically on kind of like scope and assignment with lists. And now dice game is one of the more difficult ones, and I think this is kind of more reflective of a problem where I feel like everyone's solution might be kind of different. I have like one way I solved it in mine, but there's plenty of ways you can solve it and still get the exact right answer, which is pretty reflective of kind of most programming problems, especially for intro courses. And so that was kind of one of the first rationale for the problem, right? I wanted to have this kind of problem that would incorporate loops and potentially lists and kind of other aspects we learned prior to the if else, which is week 3. So, like variables and different types, printing, and then, lists and loops and like iterating. Um, so I wanted that, and then I wanted it to be kind of fun. So like a dice game, kind of building on what we did for homework one. I think it was homework one, which had that roll dice function, which you can even use, which is kind of why I drop it here because we do need to simulate the rolling of a dice. And so I'm pretty sure if the roll dice function was close or incorrect for the first homework, that you got feedback on that because you can definitely use it here. Um, you can just use the code, or you could put it that whole function in the file and call it. But I wanted like a little fun kind of game that's like, okay, I could actually see this kind of being a thing. Um, but it definitely an open way to get you to do those concepts that I touched on. But I do think it might cause some difficulty, and then Piazza hasn't been too active for it. Um, so I know one solution that I did for it, including kind of different print segments I had, was pretty long. Um, I mean, never really quantify by lines of codes, but don't feel like, oh, if this is my 20th line in this function, when all the other functions we did for the homeworks were like 5 or less, don't feel like you're incorrect or anything uh, because of an arbitrary line length, right? So that's something I want people to watch out for because, I'm sure you can maybe solve it if you're like super concise in like 5 lines, but also if you're kind of doing like stream of consciousness and breaking it down line by line, kind of like I originally solved it. I don't know, I had maybe 20 or something. But again, kind of touching on um, the lab that had that problem where we kind of broke it down like line by line, I definitely suggest doing the same. Um, so, integer number of rounds, which corresponds to how many games to play. So we do have this input here, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to play a certain amount of games. So, maybe that indicates, okay, I want a loop that goes over each game. Oh, hold on, I'll be right back. All right. Yeah, so go over it kind of each line by line if you're struggling. So for instance, takes a number of rounds to how many games, and it's like, okay, so maybe I'll need like a counter on which round we're on. Um, and each game consists of players rolling a dice 5 times each. So it's like, okay, so I'll have 2 players. So maybe I need like different variables that represent the players. And then, okay, so there's 5 dice rolls for each. So I'll do like 10 dice rolls in total for each game. So, maybe I'll need to like break that down some way. And then I'll need to like kind of store 5 dice rolls per person for each of these games as we go over. Um, and then, okay, if there's a tie between the averages and the player, one gets the win. Okay, so I need something that deals with ties between these two. So you can kind of break it down like comment by comment in your file, or you can write it down, or just code it as you come across it. Um, and then it's like, okay, well then it gets the win. So I need some way to check for the win based on their rolls. So also between the averages, so it's like, okay, we'll need to calculate averages somehow of a list. Um, so that's kind of why I dropped these hints down here too. And then print. I know some people for the first homework had some questions on prints. I'll also be like manually grading this too, in addition to just having kind of the autocoder go through it. So if your print's a little different, or if you're kind of having struggling, or if you're struggling with that a bit, if your code is like gets it right, and then the print statement's like a little different from what it has here, um, that's fine too. I mean, I'd prefer it to be like that, uh, this way that it shows in the homework, but it's also fine if not. But I think I can actually look here that the print statements were kind of provided. Yeah. So then, player one wins, which corresponds to like the number. So in this example, we had 7 rounds. So this was like 4 and this is 3. So just kind of like an integer variable. And then, P1 averages and P2 averages, which ended up printing out like this. So that's kind of like a hint too that, oh, this is just like a list, right, of floats. And it looks like if, P1 averages or P2 averages was equal to a list and plugged in here, then it would just print like that. So it's like kind of another hint too of what variables you might need. But again, you could I mean, you could technically have like a variable for I guess each dice roll for each game, and then do stuff with it then, and have like 10 variables for each dice, and it can get messy, but you could do it a bunch of different ways, which is what I kind of like about these functions is that they do cover the concepts we need. It's a little fun, right? Hopefully, and then the fact that they can be solved in so many ways using these concepts, it's really great to see um, the different kind of thinking of the students work through them. So, and then for the hints, finally, uh, yeah, I mean, you'll need, I think, probably at least two loops. That's not to say that you technically need two loops. I'm sure you could have many more. You could maybe do it with one loop. I'm sure there's some strange Python kind of hacks out there where you could do it like without a loop or something, or a straight like not a for a while loop, just use some weird syntax or whatever. But nothing, it's something that I probably don't even know. But if you do use, so for this one too, the intention with Dice Game is that you can use it, or that you can complete it, right, just using the concepts we covered in week 1 and 2. So if you've already dove into week 3 a little, or if you did this for the last homework, you'll know this concept of if and else, um, which you can definitely use in Dice Game, right? But don't feel like if you haven't started week 3, or if you don't know what I'm saying, even when I say like an if else in Python, uh, if you're talking to someone, they said, "Oh, I use an if else," then don't feel like bad or anything, because you can definitely solve this without that. You can just solve it using the concepts from week 1 and 2, which is the intention of this. And that's also kind of the case with all the homeworks. So, when week 4, it'll just be all the concepts we covered up to week 4. And anytime we do need to kind of use something that we didn't cover, like for the dice roll game using random, right? It wasn't like explicitly covered in OLI. So I did provide that documentation and also kind of reference how it's similar to importing math, right? So it's kind of like taking the same concept but using a different library. So anytime that is the case, I'll try to link the documentation here, which is kind of what I hint at here. Like, oh, for something in here, you may need to look up kind of methods that can be applied to lists. So, the same list up there, or same link. And perhaps, a built-in Python function. So that one, wasn't really kind of hiding that. But again, even if you don't use kind of any of the methods here, any of the functions here, there's a ton of different other ones you could use, or you could just do it yourself. You don't have to really have a Python function do certain things. So eager to see everyone's response on that. But yeah, hopefully no one gets too stuck. Definitely post on Piazza. The homework is due Tuesday instead of the Monday. So I'll have office hours. What do I have office hours on Tuesday? Like 5 to 6, I think. So I guess worst case, if you get super stuck and need more office hours, there will be Tuesday. I think that's after the due date though. So you could use a flex day or just get 10% off. But in the meantime, definitely post on Piazza or shoot me an email. But yeah, just line by line. Remember, it's just over the concepts of week 2 and week 1. But if you've started week 3 or know of other stuff, definitely feel free to use it. There are some kind of Python functions and methods that will trim down a couple lines on it, but yeah, there's no one right way to solve it as long as you're kind of getting the same core thing of getting it to print out like this and getting these averages, then you're probably fine. And yeah, hopefully this video, it is. Well, actually, the last one said we was recording too, but now I'm on this like different display for my YouTube live, and it says that I have a live and healthy stream right now. So hopefully this one goes through, because I feel a bit redundant, and I'm sorry. Yeah, and also I guess I know if you ever are like, oh, I thought you were streaming now, did it get rescheduled or whatever? Definitely shoot me an email, um, whenever that happens. No such thing as if it's like, 10 minutes after the hour and you're like, oh, maybe he's just late. Definitely still like email me or whatever. Because it's my first time using this Streamlabs OBS software, which has been good so far. But Also, thank you to the person that did email me and let me know that I need to redo this. But yeah, I think that's it. I don't know if I touched on this too, but also if any of the functions get kind of big, like I know dice game can get big, and there's some work you can do where you like put it in kind of break it down, right? So if I have like 20 lines to solve this, maybe 10 lines do something specific that kind of lends itself to its own function. You're definitely free to kind of put the like the some helping code into different helper functions and then call them from this main one, as long as like this main function prints out this stuff. So for instance, if I had, like something like this, and then I was like roll dice, I don't know, free games, and then I don't know what I'm, like calc averages, and then I put in like some stuff here or whatever, which, I don't have these variable defined, and then I print all the stuff right here. That's fine as long as I have, the actual like helping code here, which you'd have to, or else it'd get errors. But yeah, that's another way you could do it if you feel like this main one's getting too cluttered. Also, don't be, or I guess don't be, don't forget to like kind of test the functions too. So for this one, I did provide kind of like example screenshots, I believe, of every function, so you can kind of get tests, but definitely also test it with other ones too, because there's some cases where like, okay, maybe your function for like print even numbers while works for like this example, but then if my list was like similar to this first one, then maybe your function, the way you coded it, doesn't provide the same input. So I would say also don't forget to run it by other cases than just kind of the ones I provided here, if you're not already. So, number fun 17, maybe you do get this exact output, but then, also try it for like, what's the equal to, yeah, greater than or equal to 5. So maybe try it for 5, or try it for like, I don't know, 80. Although that'd be a lot of prints. And same, like, with this one, you could pass it in a big list of strings, not like a mixed list of ints, floats, and strings. I don't know, just be sure basically that your code kind of handles the different inputs uh, that are valid based on these kind of instructions. Yeah, I think that really covers it. I'll definitely keep an eye out on Piazza for dice game questions Monday and Tuesday. I think I actually have a question on Piazza I need to answer now. But I've tried to be good about kind of staying up to date on that. Thank you to everyone that's kind of helping out on answering the Piazza questions. Those are great. Uh, I think this week too, there were like a couple on there that had some like really nice student responses. So it's really cool to have like, everyone kind of help each other out and then to very explicitly post a thanking of how they kind of like rationalize these concepts and like construct these mental models as opposed to just like me saying it. Because there's like no one right way. So that's like really cool to see, in my opinion, and it helps out. Um, but yeah, especially since I don't think this first stream went through. I hope I didn't like kind of like uh, mess anyone up that maybe had questions. So I actually will put once this gets processed tonight. I think it's probably just gonna be a 30-minute video, so I'll post an announcement letting people know that this video is posted. That if you didn't get to see the first stream, to post on, and you have questions, feel free to post on Piazza or whatever. And just let people know that the due date is technically Tuesday, not Monday, in case people never checked. And tomorrow, I believe, the homework 3 and lab 3 will go out. And yeah, and the quiz for week 3 is already out there on OLI, as is material. And yeah, I think that about covers it. Just remember with dice game, try to break it down kind of line by line of what code you might need. Don't forget to keep kind of track of variables for the different players, player 1 and player 2, right? The kind of output of this list and the code sample give you kind of a hint of like, oh, you might need a list to keep track of something. Um, yeah, so definitely make use of lists, make use of for loops or while loops or and while loops. Right. And yeah, definitely post any questions if you have them. I look forward to seeing everyone's response. And hope everyone had a good weekend and has a good week.